So I have been struggling with that whole idea of what education should do. And I'm not going to be as philosophical as Professor Ogutu, but just to say I like this one, especially because it comes from someone who is in the field of literature. Leo Tolstoy is a writer, and many of you may have read him. So when I saw this quote from him, I really liked it. I thought, I'm going to be using this one in many places. But he simply says that the only purpose of education is freedom, and the only method is experience. And he brings us to the idea that education should provide us with the freedom to think, with the freedom to explore, with the freedom to learn what, when, where, why, and how. And I think this cannot work unless you are in an environment where education is personalized. This is why I liked the topic when I saw it, that you have brought it here. See, it can't happen unless we have an education system that is very personalized. And so I want really to thank you and acknowledge that what you're doing is really transformative. It should probably, this kind of workshop should probably take place in all universities in Kenya, so that we get to that level where we are beginning to think that we are providing students with an opportunity to learn, but we want them to learn as individuals. And that way, we can really be transformative. Of course, I have to warn ourselves that we must be aware that some of these digital spaces, that we make sure that the products out of this are also human in many ways. So in the context of all the stories that I have given you, and this statement from Leo Tolstoy that education should provide an opportunity for people to learn, it should be freedom to learn, think, explore, when, where, that freedom should be enshrined. There are some questions that I think we could ask ourselves. And one of those questions that we could ask ourselves is whether our education system and the pedagogical methodologies that we are using are only delivering content or they're about transforming lives. We have a very grades-oriented education system, and I'm hoping the CBC will undo that, so that our top performers are those who have the highest grades. I don't have anything against people scoring high grades, but I know that it's not only grades that you need to be successful in life or to be a good human being. And I think sometimes we are underemphasizing these other areas. Are we truly meeting the needs of each student? Are we fostering an environment where excellence is embedded in our culture? Some of you may have seen that the Commission for University Education has recent times tried to crack down on people who are giving fake certificates and fake providers. The reason why we are doing that is just because that culture, this question of excellence, is not embedded in the culture of the people. Why does someone want to get a degree for which they have not learned? In other words, the excellence, the skills don't matter. All I just want is a piece of paper. Also, the employment sector has also is aiding the process, because I am sure if we put mechanism in place to thoroughly interview the candidates that come before us without employing them because they are our relatives, and we are only asking them for a piece of paper so that we can have something documented that they were actually qualified. But if really we wanted to get the candidate who has the skills, I'm sure the interviewing system would be able to find these people who are engaging in fraud. But the culture of excellence is not embedded in us. And I think that embedding needs to take place right from high school to university, to secondary school, to university, and higher. So that's our approach to education, take into consideration the unique needs and abilities, aspirations of each student. You know, that brother of mine I told you, he was a very funny guy. I think probably he would have become an actor, a comedian, or something along those lines if he had been cultivated properly. You know, when he was looking after animals, he would take his coat and put it on the goat. And then the goat would run away. He had, and even now, he's still a comedian of the family, but I think his unique needs and abilities were not captured by the education system, so he fell out of the way. Do we look at students coming from increasingly diverse backgrounds and see how we can nurture them? Not everybody will have come from the city. Some people have come from completely different experiences. And are we able to capture those students? And when they come to Strathmore, we make sure that we capture them and they become just as good as students from any other part of the world. I know that there is a lot of diversity here at Strathmore, and I want to encourage that that should continue. But then our education system must capture those if we are going to be truly transformative. Academic ability and personal circumstances, yes, it is true that some students may not be as gifted in academics as others. But they can still be helped. Mental health challenges, I mentioned about the case of my son. If he were to go to a university in Kenya, would they recognize the kind of difficulties he might have, and because of his mental health, they treat him in a way that encourages him to study and continue? Is there space and mechanism to identify those kinds of students and nurture them? And of course, career aspirations. Ladies and gentlemen, I am hoping that that's what the competence-based education is going to do in Kenya.